Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, boy. Where do we begin?
Our sign's crooked. Oh, we're going to wing it like we always do. What do you mean, where do we begin? We're going to wing it.
Yeah, that's usually what we do.
And by the way, our sign is crooked. That's because our studio, we're lacking the funds to make it be perfect.
Or you just hung the curtain back up crooked.
Well, yeah, I hung it up crooked.
Or the cat likes to run behind there and play, so yeah. Who knows?
Oh, my.
So we want to thank everybody for all your emails and comments. We really appreciate it.
Glad to hear that Mark and Cora are on the mend.
Oh, yes. So glad. They were sick with the flu, and we were really worried about them. So thank you, Louise, for going over and checking on them for us. And want to welcome all our new subscribers and thank all of those who are already watching our videos. Thank you so much, guys, for watching our videos, because we started doing this just for our own therapy, just to get things off of our chests. And, people started making comments and subscribing, and it's like, wow, they're watching our videos.
Now we don't have time to do all our comments.
And we do apologize. I wish we could answer each and every one, because we do appreciate all of them. And we have a lot of friends that are, trying to help us with comments and questions and stuff. And we've been getting a lot through the website, questions. And some from even some current witnesses. So we're real happy about that.
Yeah, we're happy to see that. We truly are.
And we've also got some good news that just in this past week, since last Friday, we know of 4 Jehovah's Witnesses who have sent in their disassociation letters. So that is really good news, because that's just, ones that are in our small little, group, or ones that we know about. I'm sure there's
So it is encouraging to see that, Jehovah's Witnesses are waking up, but it's also kind of discouraging, depending on how you perceive this. And we're talking about the annual meeting.
Oh, I hope you guys appreciate the sacrifice that we did. 4 hours. I thought my ears were going to bleed. It's like, oh.
Well, it's 4 hours of babble, crap. That's all what it was. But we want to thank LA Gamer for doing the video that he did regarding Watchtower and Pyramidology. Kim and I had actually talked about doing a video on this, because we've got some, some information that really contradicts what Watchtower's, David Splain was trying to explain about pyramidology. So for those that have not seen LA Gamer's video, we're going to actually post a link down below. Yeah. And what you probably should do at this point is pause our video and go watch his, because it actually puts our video into context.
Yeah, can do that. And we're also going to have the clip from David Splain in ours somewhere here also.
But one of the biggest things that Kim and I observed while watching the idiots give their talks is that we got the very distinct impression, and it's like we've already said, they're getting rid of their history. I forget which one made the comment and which talk it was, but we have to go back through and kind of we actually sat down and took notes. So we got to go back and timestamp and get the specific saying. But one of the idiots said, oh, we're not going to worry about that stuff in the past, or something to that effect. So they're really getting rid of their history. And then this David Splain talk regarding the pyramidology. Well, not so much the pyramidology. It was
the type and antitype.
Type and antitype, exactly. Yeah. So thank you, LA Gamer, for doing such a fine job on that video. Your points were spot on, and Kim and I absolutely do not want to take anything away from you. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to augment it. We're going to add to it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just simply because we have some more information. And then, of course, we're going to do what only we can do.
Wow. Okay, now in this talk, Brother Splain mentioned how, yes, the Bible students, love the pyramids and they were studying it. And he mentions a Brother Smith who went and was studying the pyramid and sending information back. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, Bible students, whatever you want to call them, but they learned that was bad.
Well, we're gonna requalify something here. I'm not sure when it's gonna happen because keep in mind we're just winging this.
No script, but we just want to clarify a few things because it was almost like he left some things out that makes you talk about half truths.
Yeah. Well, here's
that let you believe something else.
Here's the picture in their Jehovah's Witnesses Proclaimers book. We all remember getting this. Oh, we was excited to get, the candid history of Jehovah's Witnesses. And here's, the picture of, the pyramid and all that stuff that they're referring to.
Page 200.
But we found it interesting that there was a few certain details that were left out. Now, for the first time, in modern day history, I should qualify that, have the governing body and Jehovah's Witnesses admitted to the fact that the Bible students were involved in pyramidology. They even mentioned that, yes, when you go to Russell's grave, which, we all remember the picture of the nice silver headstone that says Pastor Russell, they even mentioned that when you look off, you can see a pyramid. And then they leave it at that.
So why don't we pause it right here and show the picture that we have of this huge Freemason temple
in the
right behind it.
Now, if you noticed, when you heard Idiot Splain say, oh, you'll see a pyramid, not one time does he acknowledge the sign that says the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society. See, he conveniently leaves that out, doesn't he?
He makes it sound like the Bible students built this on their own.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Let me, David Splain, you knucklehead. See? Jehovah's Witnesses, proclaimers of the good news. When you open this right up to just before the forward, you see the copyright? See the copyright? Watchtower Bible Tract Society? Right underneath that it says Watchtower Bible Tract Society, New York. International Bible Students Association. Hey, idiots! You're still one and the same. Who are you trying to kid? This wasn't the Bible students that did that way back then. That was the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, also known as the Bible students. And in fact, today, who is their only charitable organization?
The International Bible Students Association, listed in the Register of Charity, forms in Canada and in the UK.
Yeah. So you're still the same people. You're still associated with the international. So don't blame some piss poor history on the international Bible students when you're still one and the same. In fact, who's doing all your printing? The Bible students. The International Bible Students Association. Well, goodness.
Let's just read what it says here in the Proclaimer's book. For some 35 years, Pastor Russell thought that the Great Pyramid of Giza was God's stone witness, corroborating biblical time periods. But Jehovah's Witnesses have abandoned the idea that an Egyptian pyramid has anything to do with true worship. That was in 1928. So up until 1928, they still were using that whole divine plan of the ages.
Russell died in 1916? So what's that? Make that 20-something years?
Well, not only that, don't they?
16 years later, they were still using his.
Yeah, well, they celebrated Christmas and used the cross up until the 20s. But yeah, I find it interesting how they claim Jesus came down and cleansed the temple and chose them in 1919.
Yeah, and they were still celebrating Christmas and they were still believing in pyramidology at that time. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Christ chose them, all right.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is most of you know that we have what we affectionately call the Beast, this huge archives. And yes, it's going to take me a long time to go through that. but I have the original Russell book called Thy Kingdom Come. Now, there's actually two versions. And Atlantis, I did not know this, but Atlantis and his wife Nevada, there is the Studies in the Scriptures, but there's also the Millennial Dawn version. And they do vary. I thought they were exactly the same, but they are not. They do vary. So this is from the Millennial Dawn version, and it's volume 3, Thy Kingdom Come, from 1891. And it starts on page 313, and it's chapter 10, the testimony of God's stone witness and prophet, the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Now, the reason we bring this up, because Brother Splain mentioned in his talk that this Brother Smith, was gone over to the pyramids, and he was sending information back, and he made it sound like it was him that was pushing this pyramid,
Half-truths and lies.
research and stuff. No, it was Russell. It was Russell, like LA Gamer says, because right here, Russell wrote this book.
Right. Wasn't Smith.
Not Smith. And they even mention Professor Smith in this book here in chapter 10. But it starts with general description of the Great Pyramid. Why of special interest to Christians. The Great Pyramid, a storehouse of truth. Now, I'm going to put the link to both versions of this book down below, because I do have these uploaded already. And they use the scripture Isaiah 19:19 and 20. In that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt.
Well, if you do any serious archaeological research, you'll see what Isaiah is referring to.
Yeah. But here on page 315, but it is a strong corroborative witness to God's plan, and few students can carefully examine it, marking the harmony of its testimony with that of the written word, without feeling impressed that its construction was planned and directed by the same divine wisdom, and that it is the pillar of witness referred to by the prophet in the above quotation, Isaiah 19. If it was built under God's direction to be one of his witnesses to men, we might reasonably expect some allusion to it in the written word of God. So I strongly suggest reading this chapter, because it's real interesting.
Here's the thing. If you believe what this knucklehead Charles Taze Russell wrote about it being God's witness, God's plan, then doesn't that mean that the Egyptians were God's chosen people? Figure it out. Think about it. If God put the divine plan of ages in the temple, into the pyramids of Egypt, then God was backing the Egyptians, wasn't he?
Yeah. But I want to mention real quick here, several, including Dallas, have done extensive research on the connection between Freemasons and Russell. But I noticed this here on page 318. And they're talking about the Great Pyramid and its significant measurements. We all know he went, got the measurements for the pyramid. And he says, who hath stretched the line upon it? The perfection of the shape of the Great Pyramid and its exactness in every respect prove that its construction was guided by some master architect. Don't the Freemasons have the great architect as, that they call their god?
Yeah. So you got some more to read, because I see you have some more highlighted stuff.
Oh my goodness, there is just so much. They mention in here, he quotes from a book called The Great Pyramid, Scientific Features, and all this. I also have this book, so I will post this in the link below. Let's see, I'm trying to see who this was written for, but I do have this book. But then here they talk about this Professor Smith on page 320, and how he had come to all this conclusion. And it says, it does admit that a few years after Professor Smith's return came the suggestion that the Great Pyramid is Jehovah's Witness, and that it is important as witness to divine truth as to natural science. So then they go in to talk about how this great and beautiful features of the Great Pyramid, and like I said, It's in that book, and this is in which we now find to be a most full and complete corroboration of the plan of the ages and the times and seasons therewith associated as taught in the scriptures and presented in this and the preceding volumes of the Millennial Dawn series. So this was not this Professor Smith. This is Russell. This is Russell. Okay, I just wanted to show here. Oh yeah, 321. I would go look at this because he's talking about the Pleiades being the center of the universe and, with God. But I thought this was interesting here on page 322. They're claiming that Melchizedek is the one that built the pyramid and he was not an Egyptian. So they're totally saying, that it was not the Egyptians, that it was, and they go in this whole thing about peaceful kings who had invaded Egypt. And so they don't even believe Egyptians, or at least Russell doesn't believe that it was the Egyptians that built it, but it was actually King Melchizedek who came in, built the pyramid, and then left just as peacefully as he came in.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's an article online entitled "The Pyramid Scheme" by Eric Frank, Francke, Frankie. And it's interesting to note that Russell had to go and measure the pyramid twice, or it got measured twice, and he lost 45 inches. But I just want to point something out to the thinking Jehovah's Witness, because we all know that all of this centers around 1914 and, Christ's words when the disciples ask us, "Tell us, Lord, when will these things be, in the sign of your presence," and all of this stuff. And, Jesus said that the world will see a tribulation that'll never occur again. And, they all blah, blah, blah. But Russell uses the measurements of the pyramid that point to 1914. Okay, and you can actually find this on the second page of this gentleman's article. But I just want to kind of quote the last sentence of this. Thus, the pyramid witness that the close of 1914 will be the beginning of the time of trouble, such as was not since there was a nation, no, nor ever shall be afterward. And thus, it will be noted that this witness fully corroborates the Bible's testimony on the subject. Okay, so they're using the measurement of the pyramids to point to 1914. And they're trying to tie that into with Christ's prophecies of the last days. And then, of course, when you tie those together, you have to go back to Christ's words. Tell us, his disciples ask, when will these things be and what will be the sign of your presence and the conclusion of the system of things? And Christ said, be careful that you're not misled. Many will come on the basis of my name saying this and that, and the Lord is here and the Lord's there. But I want to point something out regarding what he's saying here, is that that 1914 will be the beginning of the time of trouble, such as was not since there was a nation, no, nor will there be afterwards. So I want to focus on afterwards, okay? But first, let's go to 70 CE. This is taken from the 1998 Watchtower, 9/15, September 15th, pages 3 through 4. It's entitled, Are You Awake to Our Times? Under the subheading, Escape from a Man-Made Cataclysm. In the first century of our common era, Christians living in Jerusalem also had to decide whether they should abandon their homes. Flight from that city in 66 CE saved them from the destruction that befell other residents and thousands of Jews who had come to Jerusalem for the Passover of 70 CE. Over 1 million people were inside that walled city for the Passover observance when Roman armies cut off any chance of escape. Famine, power struggles, and the Roman relentless attacks resulted in the death tolls of more than 1 million. Now, historically, it wasn't just Jerusalem, it was the surrounding areas, and historians calculate to the best of their ability that that destruction to the world at that time, there was about 2 million people that actually lost their lives. It was just the 1 million Jews inside of Jerusalem, that suffered because they did not heed Christ's words.
Well, I think it was Josephus that said that was about half the world's population at that time.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to point to. So really, if you're talking about half of the world's population, estimated, half of the world's population being 2 million people, that means there was only about 4 million plus on earth at that time. There again, that's what historians are saying. So was that really the greatest? Will it ever occur again? Well, 1914 brought the Great War, later renamed World War I after World War II. Now, if you're looking for a typical and an anti-typical, this is it. Here's the anti-typical. This comes from the 1992 Watchtower. March 1st, page 3. And it's entitled Man's Plan for International Security. Now remember, Jehovah's Witnesses say that World War I was the beginning of the end and it will never occur again, blah, blah, blah. He said right here, not since there was a nation, no, nor shall ever be afterward. But let's look at a few statistics at World War II and maybe compare them to 70 CE. During the last 2 years of the Second World War, explained the television documentary Goodbye War, over 1 million people were being killed each month. Now, wait a minute. The last 2 years, so that would be 24 months. In the last 24 months of World War II, that would be 24 million people. Isn't that greater than the loss of life in 70 CE? It occurred again, and it was greater than the destruction of World War I. But you have to keep in mind, who was Christ talking to and about? About the Jews. How many Jews were encamped in World War I and executed by the Germans?
Oh, well, we just did that series about Nazis and the Jews in World War II.
That's
there
right.
was over 6 million Jews killed in prison and concentration camps.
But there's no mention of Jews suffering that type of atrocity in World War I, is there? No, it all goes to World War II. And in fact, what a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses don't stop to realize that, yes, tragically, 6 million Jews lost their lives in German concentration camps. But what a lot of people don't realize is that there was still 10 million Jews in concentration camps. So truly, if you're looking for an anti-typical, if those days of World War II had not been cut short, there'd have been no Jew left on this earth. Simple as that. So that actually, if you're looking for a dual application to Christ's words prior to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, World War II fits that bill a whole heck of a lot better than World War I does. So even from an absolute historical perspective, looking back, World War I doesn't even come close to fulfilling Christ's words, the beginning of the end. So even from that perspective, even if you measure the pyramids, you still don't have the timing right because you're not really following Christ's words.
Mikey, I just noticed here, it says Charles T. Russell went to his grave believing that the Great Pyramid was the Bible in stone, built as witness to the chronologies he espoused. So,
he espoused.
It wasn't the Bible students and then they learned it was wrong and then they changed their idea. No, it was Russell. In fact, we've been looking for an article, but we had heard that his mother was into pyramidology also. But we just found all of this interesting, how David Splain talks about the type and the antitype, and they don't get into that anymore. But what's interesting, if you listen to these talks, and it's on JW Broadcasting, like I said, if you can endure it, it's about 4 hours long. Or if you want to just fast forward to about 2.5 hours, that's when the governing body talks start. But it was interesting how they're like, okay, yes, we believe that in the past, but we're not going to do that anymore. And in fact, I think we're going to do something about, they start talking about the micro-analyzing Christ's
Oh, yeah.
parables. Oh, we don't do that anymore. But then they turn around and start doing it.
Microanalyze it all over again.
Yeah, the parable about the 10 virgins and the lamp oil and all of that. It's like, didn't you just say you weren't going to be doing that anymore?
Yeah.
So it's real interesting. And we just thought we would mention this, how he seems to have just been telling half truths, and doesn't, admit to the witness.
Well, he just doesn't come out fully and explain the whole pyramid thing. Nowhere does he say, but on that pyramid, there is the plaque that says Watchtower and Bible Tract Society. But I also found it interesting too, Kim, that nowhere, even though they're saying, oh, this is what they used to believe, we're not going to believe that no more. Nowhere in any of these governing body talks does any one of them idiots offer an apology to all the people that was exposing the pyramids decades ago, even weeks ago, months ago. Nowhere do they ever offer an apology for ripping us apart from our families, because we knew the truth. We knew the truth about the pyramids. Yeah. And yet, no apology. You guys are still a bunch of bastards.
Well, even if they say, yes, the apostates are right in what they're saying, even that
no apologies
would help. Or, what about all of the brothers and sisters that they disfellowshipped years ago for bringing this stuff out? In the 80s, I can remember, brothers and sisters being kicked out and disfellowshipped. What about apologizing to them? Are you going to reinstate them? Because what they were saying was true?
Was true.
No, you're not.
See, you disfellowshipped us for telling the truth. See, Galatians 4:10, Paul says, have I become your enemy now that I tell you the truth? Where's the apologies?
Yeah,
exactly. You owe the entire XJW community, those that were disfellowshipped, for trying to expose truth. You owe all of us a public apology. Simple as that.
Exactly.
So here again, friends, don't expect it. Because what you got is babble, 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 crap, crap, crap.
Yeah. So, thought you would find this interesting. And like I said, go watch LA Gamer. And we will put the clip of Splains, talk about admitting the pyramid thing in the Bible students at the end of this video. So, but go watch LA Gamer, and you might want to take a look at the book that I post below, because that is interesting also. I will post both of them. So,
bye.
You all have a great weekend, and we may be kind of quiet this weekend because the kids are coming out, and we are having a family weekend, taking the weekend off. So, we'll talk to you later.
Let's get right into our subject, types and antitypes. Now, years ago, our publications often applied certain Bible accounts and certain Bible characters as types of something greater. But you've noticed that in recent years, that is seldom done. And the purpose of this talk is to explain why. First of all, what is a type and what is an antitype? Well, the Watchtower of September 15th, 1950 defined them this way. It said, a type is a representation of something that will come to pass at a future time. The antitype is the reality of the thing which the type represents. So that was the definition that was given by the Watchtower. And we might add that Jehovah is usually involved in designing the type. But here's the question. Who is to decide if a person or an event is a type if the Word of God doesn't say anything about it? Who is qualified to do that? Our answer? We can do no better than to quote our beloved brother Albert Schroeder, who said, we need to exercise great care when applying accounts in the Hebrew Scriptures as prophetic patterns or types if these accounts are not applied in the Scriptures themselves. Wasn't that a beautiful statement? We agree with it. Now, the study of types and antitypes is not unique to Jehovah's Witnesses. During the past 2,000 years, Catholic and Jewish scholars have made quite a diligent study of types and antitypes. In fact, there's even a name for the study. They call it typology. Now, the study of types and antitypes was not only common among Catholic and Jewish scholars, but it was very popular among Protestant scholars as well. The Puritans, like Edward Taylor, applied many Bible events to themselves. The Baptists and Congregationalists did likewise. So, it's not surprising that the early Bible students, who had generally belonged to these groups, were also very fond of types. And so have many of us been. Many of us remember happy moments at the congregation book study, studying all about types and antitypes. And it's true that the study of types could be thrilling. So now here's a question. If the study of a certain subject makes chills run up and down your spine, could it possibly be mistaken? And the answer is yes. The case of Brother Arch W. Smith is an example. In 1886, Brother Russell published a book that contained a chart linking the ages of mankind to the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Now, that pyramid was called by the Bible students the Bible in stone. They loved the study of the pyramid. In fact, if you have seen pictures of Brother Russell's grave, you have noticed that there was a pyramid nearby. And that's because the Bible students believed very much in the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And some became very engrossed in measuring certain rooms and certain features of the pyramid to try to determine, for example, how long they had to wait before they went to heaven and so on. And so one who was just thrilled by the study of types was Brother Arch W. Smith. It was a hobby of his. He loved it. In fact, he gave a lot of prayerful thought to the dimensions of the pyramid, and from time to time he would write into Bethel and let them know what his findings were to support the idea that the Great Pyramid had a place in Jehovah's purpose. He loved it. But when the Watchtower of 1928 came out and said that Jehovah doesn't need a stone monument built by pagans to accomplish his purpose, Brother Smith accepted it. He let reason win out over emotion.